I make an interesting film about a stone in a field? Well, I certainly think I can.
No ordinary stone in a field, possibly the oldest megalithic circle in the UK, marking a boundary thousands of years older than the one that is there today, and telling us about Neolithic trade and exchange. Plus, a Celtic deity, marcher wardens, and a medieval thrashing for the English.
The simple fact is, this might be the most important stone in Scotland, and yet it is little known. And if that's not enough to make this sound like the most important stone in a field that you will have seen in a very long time, let me tell you, let me mention 3 other words. Sword in stone. It's beginning to sound a lot like Mumbo Jumbo. Our criminally unknown stone is in the field here behind me. Nowadays, it's known as the Lochmaben Stone, and we are on the sort of flat coastal plain of the Solway Firth between the River Sark and Kirtle Water.
I'm sure the eagle-eyed amongst us spotted Gretna Green there. We are slap bang on the border between Scotland and England.
We are literally so close to England, the border with England. I could throw a stone out into the Solway and it would land in England. That's how near we are. It's like one of those old John Buchan novels, Send a Stone to England. Our stone has had many variations on its name over the years. I'll put some of those on the screen for you here. I particularly like this one, Locus Maponi, from the Ravenna cosmography. The suggestion that this is was a Romanized place during the Roman period in Britain. We'll come back to that in a bit. Those of you who clock such things, and note that there's a sort of delayed pun on clock coming up, will notice that the Lochmaben Stone is sort of in the middle of nowhere. So to understand the name, also clearly there is no lock here. There's no lock anywhere near us here. So to understand the name, we have to go back to one of its earlier forms. And if we look at 1398, we have Lochmaben Stone. And the clock part of that is probably the old Gaelic for stone. And then Mabon was a Celtic deity. So we have the stone of Mabon, possibly the burial place of Mabon. And did you clock the pun? And there it is, Lochmaben Stone. And if you believe Wikipedia, which is never a wise thing to do, we have to ask the question, is this the estuary pillar, the Norse meaning of Solway Firth, of which this undoubtedly has a fantastic view?
I checked this out later, including the Oxford Place Names Dictionary, and estuary of the Pillar Ford does seem to be right, with many acknowledging the Lochmaben Stone as the pillar.
And I am sure that all you mumbo-jumboists out there will not have failed to notice how the weather has taken a turn for the worst since I arrived up here. It is a glacial erratic, it's about 7 feet high, but we do know that it has been positioned here in the distant past, and it really does stand out here on this sort of flatness of the plain. And I am pleased to be able to tell you that the Lochmaben Stone is not alone, because over here in the hedge we have this. Rather beautiful, isn't it? It's the same composition as the main stone, but this one has been half buried. So just 2 stones today. However, if we go back to the first edition Ordnance Survey map, we will see a Druids circle, of course, Druids. And the accompanying notes, Ordnance Survey notes, tell us that the circle comprised 9 stones at that time, with an incredible, it was sort of oval shaped, but an incredible diameter of 50 metres, which absolutely puts this circle, if it was a megalithic circle, into the sort of realms of the famous Cumbrian circles associated with the Langdale axe trade. And that association with the Langdale axe trade is not entirely unsubstantiated. Back in 1982, the Lochmaben Stone fell over, and that enabled them to look at the socket that it was in, and that's how they know it was positioned. There were signs that a shallow socket had been dug, but they found some charcoal, oak and hazel charcoal, and the analysis of that gave us a date, I think it was something like 3200 BC. So we are bang on in the right sort of period for the classic Cumbrian stone circles, which across this region typically have yielded significant Langdale axe finds. Just look at where this is on the map. It seems perfect. The location is absolutely ideal if we consider the idea of the Langdale axes being shipped north out of the Lake District. This stone, this circle, as it may have been, on the plain, at the point where you start to be able to cross the Solway. You know, we cross it today on the M6, not too far away from here. You know,
experts at Specsavers.
Obviously I'm speculating a lot here, but I do like the idea. Clearly, the fact that there are only 2 stones left standing today presents something of a problem to this idea that we are looking at the remnants of a once mighty Cumbrian circle. As well as the Ordnance Survey notes, we have a tale from the 1800s of a tenant farmer. Yes, you'll be delighted to know, once again, we can blame a tenant farmer from the 1800s for the destruction of a prehistoric stone circle. He decided that agricultural improvements were required and started to bury the 3 remaining stones that existed at that time, until the brave Lord Mansfield stepped in. It's always a lord, isn't it, that arrives to put these things right, making him aware of what an important meeting place this had been throughout history. And this is led to account for the fact that the stone in the hedge does appear to be half buried, and presumably there's a 3rd stone somewhere under the ground. I really like it in my straw bale den. I feel safe from the world.
So we have a stone of Mabon, suggesting the cult of Maponos was practised here. Whilst Iron Age in origin, evidence for this cult in Britain appears from the Roman period onwards. They associated Maponos with Apollo. It seems likely the place of Maponi in Ravenna is the modern-day town of Lochmaben, which is further north up near Lochmaben. There is a Roman fort there, and look, it has locks. Perhaps the circle picked up its Mabon associations then or later in the Dark Age kingdom of Reged, where we know Maponos was revered. P.S. I know he also appears in Welsh poems.
Look how dry this is. It's like tinder. We still haven't really had any proper rain. What about you? And when I say tinder, I mean in the traditional sense of the word, i.e. a way to ignite a fire, not in the sense of UK shagger. I don't need to be picked up by any more viewers about my old fuddy-duddy language, where I'm using words that nowadays have a sort of smutty innuendo double meaning to them. On that subject, over to me in the studio for a little insight into the making of these films.
Hey, I've got a new spreadsheet, and let's be honest, who doesn't love a new spreadsheet? What I wanted to do was look at the relationship between the amount of time I put into making these films versus the income. So taking this recent video as an example, let's have a little look here at the amount of hours that went into making that. Let's have a look. Ah, right, so 41 hours. Goodness, that's quite a lot, isn't it? Let's have a little look at the income, how that compares. 94p per hour, which is 8% of the national living wage. Oh well, at least there is the joy to be had from the lovely comments that come in on these videos, the comments that reflect 41 hours worth of work. At least we have our members, I suppose. Here is an old quote. To the south of the old house of Greatney, close to upon Solway Firth, there are 4 or 5 great stones which the Dr. Abercrombie names Lochmaben Stones, where the commissioners of Scotland and England met and adjusted and regulated their differences and gave bail for the good behaviour one to another. It's rather wonderful to think of the role these stones played in border management so many thousands of years after they were put up. In 1448, however, things took a nasty turn here with the Battle of Sark, a thrashing for the English with an estimated death toll of 3,000 versus 600 Scots. The other name for that battle? The Battle of Lochmaben Stone.
Now, I am conscious that I enticed some of you to watch this video with the promise of some Arthurian lore. Apparently, according to Tolstoy, he refers to the Lochmaben Stone as a place where Merlin the Big Wizard carried out ceremonies. And it has also been proposed that this is the stone in which Excalibur, the big magic sword, was buried. Do you think I should get some energy out of it while I'm here? Okay. Here goes.
'Tis is time that I were gone. Make broad thy shoulders to receive my weight and bear me to the margin. Yet I fear my wound have taken cold.
It's so odd being an Englishman in Scotland and just walking wherever you like. Obviously, they don't accommodate you. You have to do plenty of scrambling over barbed wire fences and the like. But it just feels so weird, so wrong. Nice, though, I think, when you get used to it, and it doesn't seem to be causing any problems. And I've learned that Canadian geese, or whatever they are, do not like antiquarians. Some of you seem to have noticed that whilst I take the mickey out of the whole mystic mumbo-jumbo thing, I have been caught getting the vibe, getting the feeling of some of the places that I visit. And that is true, I will concede that. And that has happened here today at this old stone. As ever, I would very much encourage you to come and visit this place, and I'll put a map somewhere in the video to show you where I parked and how I got to the stone. It was very easy. You just feel so weird as an English person because there aren't any footpaths, although there is one here, so I don't know what that one's all about. In the little car park, there are some signs, but as with all such signs, you can't read them. They look like they date back to the millennium when there was some money. But you lot are lucky, of course you don't need this sign. You've got me, and there's even more information in my video than there is on this sign, if you was able to read it, which you can't.
Why am I making such a preposterous claim? It isn't clickbait, even though you do now know about that 94p per hour thing. Here's why. Potentially, this is the oldest megalithic circle in the UK. Cumbrian in style, squat and sturdy, not unlike myself. So prominent on the plain back in the day, marking this key strategic fording point. 5,000 years ago, it signed a transition in the landscape long before anybody thought up ideas such as England and Scotland. The 12 Apostles is a short way off. That's Cumbrian. Was Lochmaben part of the mysterious system of stone axe exchange?
This is the great thing about amateur antiquarianism. I knew nothing about this place until yesterday, let alone that I was going to come here, and I've really, really enjoyed it. The only problem I've had today is that I left my glasses at home. So I've been having to use the magnifying glass on my Swiss Army knife to read my lines and my notes. So it's a good reminder to always make sure you have your Swiss Army knife with you. when you come out on these antiquarian adventures. I feel as though the energy that I took in from the stone earlier is going to help to ensure that we have a really smooth ending. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Thank you to our members. Please subscribe if you don't, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Oh, Christ! Jesus!